94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Niamey. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye urges calm and national cohesion as the country celebrates Eid-ul-Adha.
On the occasion of this Tabaski celebration, we are aware of the sacrifices many of you have made to celebrate this festival with dignity.
Meanwhile, Gambian President Barrow calls for peace ahead of December elections amid silence on his re-election bid. A new U.S. report exposes 30,000 armed militants fueling violence across Nigeria.
So if you look at some of the things going on in the North Central, yes, you can look at it from the prism or from the lens of religious tension.
Pharmaceutical giants intensify efforts to develop vaccine against the new Ebola strain. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Enjoy.
Happy holidays and glad to have you join us. This edition of Newslink begins right here in Senegal as Muslims in the country today mark the Eid-ul-Adha Islamic rites locally referred to as Tabaski. Addressing the nation after Eid prayers, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye called for peace, social cohesion and national unity. The Senegalese head of state also acknowledged the sacrifices of the population and officials during these difficult times as the country finds itself at a crossroad, compounded by economic and social issues like unemployment.
On the occasion of this Tabaski celebration, as we observe the Abrahamic ritual sacrifice, I extend my warmest wishes for peace, good health, and shared prosperity. Tabaski reminds us that we must be willing to give up a part of ourselves for something greater than ourselves. It is a lesson in faith. It is also a lesson in civic responsibility that speaks the republic we seek to build. We are aware of the sacrifices many of you have made to celebrate this festival with dignity. The very spirit of Tabaski is sharing. At this moment, I would like to ask our revered religious and traditional leaders to continue keeping our country in their prayers. I would also like to entrust to them our heroes who could not be in Senegal today because they have gone to defend the nation's colors as part of the 2026 World Cup. To the imams, religious and traditional leaders, may your prayers rise to the Almighty for peace in the nation. I wish everyone an excellent celebration. Happy Tabaski, and may God bless Senegal.
That was Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. In neighboring Gambia, President Adama Barrow is urging citizens to safeguard peace and national unity as the country prepares for general elections in December 2026. President Barrow, who spoke on Wednesday shortly after joining Muslims in Banjul for the Eid prayers, also advocated for dialogue and stability in the Middle East. WADR Sang Donald Mendy reports from Banjul.
Against the backdrop of growing political activities ahead of the elections, President Barrow reminds Gambians about the importance of maintaining peace and democratic values. He calls on political parties, supporters, and citizens to conduct their campaigns peacefully and contribute towards free, fair, and credible elections.
This year is a very important year in our calendar. The year is an election year. So we will advise Gambians to maintain peace, maintain stability in this country, so that we will organize a very successful election that is peaceful, election that is transparent, election that will be recognized by the international community.
The appeal comes at a time when the political mobilization is gradually intensifying across the Gambia, with parties engaging communities ahead of the polls. President Barrow also turned attention to ongoing tensions in the Middle East, describing peace as essential for stability and development. Speaking in his capacity as chair of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, he urges parties involved in the conflicts to embrace dialogue and pursue peaceful solutions in the interest of humanity.
And in the Middle East, they are all Muslim countries. And our religion calls for peace. Our religion is a religion, preaches peace. So we expect that all of us should maintain peace. But I call on the parties that are engaged in the war to engage in dialogue. Dialogue is the only way forward.
The Gambian president further congratulates Gambians at home and abroad for the peaceful observance of Eid al-Adha as Muslims across the country continue celebrations marked by prayers, family gatherings, and acts of charity. For Newslink on East Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
More on the Tabaski celebration. An environmental group in the Nigerian capital has launched a cleanup campaign to free the streets of Niamey from animal waste that usually pollutes the environment during the festive period. The campaign, known as the Ecological Tabaski, is largely undertaken by the organization, the Young Volunteers for the Environment. These volunteers, in addition to the exercise, are exploring the value chain of converting waste to wealth. They intend to transform animal waste into compost for agricultural purposes. Abdullah Hassan gives the details in the following report.
In Niamey, the country's largest city, the days following Tabaski are synonymous with streets littered with sheep waste from the previous day. Foul odors and health risks then parade the capital. To address this problem, the environmental organization Young Volunteers for the Environment launched the Ecological Tabaski initiative. The movement collects sheep manure, which is then transformed into compost for agricultural use. Sani Ayuba is the organization's director.
In any case, everywhere people have used or at least made compost with stomach contents or other waste from Tabaski, I think they have seen a better yield. They have had positive results, which is why others continue to do it.
Sani Ayuba also states that this campaign to collect waste from sheep slaughtered during the Tabaski festival is now showing concrete results on the ground.
The angema can be seen in the changing attitudes of the population towards the use of wood. According to the Niger Timber Operators Association, for some time now, the quantity of wood they bring in or sell during the Tabaski festival has drastically decreased.
The next step for these young environmental volunteers is to industrialize the process they launched to maintain the cleanliness of the streets within the capital, Niamey, after each Tabaski festival.
A report filed by our Niamey correspondent Yakuba Habibullah and presented by Abdullah Hassan.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Let's take you to the Sahel region, where authorities in Burkina Faso are intensifying efforts in the fight against terrorism and security of territorial borders. To this end, the transitional government is recruiting over 1,000 citizens into the armed forces after a majority vote on proposed legislation that allowed the establishment of a military reserve system. The Burkinabe army says the recruitment drive will enable the national defense apparatus of the country to continue with its work. Usman Umar completes the story.
By December 2026, Burkina Faso will recruit and train 100,000 people to form a military reserve. The People's Legislative Assembly recently adopted the bill establishing the status of this military reserve. According to the Minister of Defense, General Celestine Simpori, this law is a proactive measure.
Given the current circumstances, even independently of the fight against terrorism, the geopolitical situation of the world, the alliances that are made and broken, a world in which force now prevails over law, It seems imperative that we arm ourselves more and more to prevent any eventuality.
This law applies to all Burkinabe citizens aged 18 and over who are physically fit. Mobilization is planned in the event of security threats, armed conflicts, natural disasters, or national crisis. Minister Simpore says the law provides for two types of reservists.
First-order reservists and second-order reservists. First-order reservists are those who already have military experience, training and expertise, particularly those from the defense and security forces. Second-order reservists will be selected from the general population, meeting age and medical criteria, and will undergo training before joining the second-order reserve.
The Burkinabe authorities plan to prioritize the mobilization of former military and paramilitary personnel before turning to the civilian population.
Usman Umar with that report. And in Nigeria, a new report revealed an alarming trend of recruitment by armed groups. In a May 2026 assessment by the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, approximately 30,000 armed militants are operating across different regions of the country. The report also warns that persistent violence by armed groups continue to threaten lives, displace communities, and deepen religious and communal tensions. WADR's Abuja correspondent Yechenu Sasitu reports.
According to the report, the armed groups are responsible for killings, kidnappings, displacements of communities, and attacks linked to religious and communal tensions in parts of the country. The Commission notes that despite ongoing military operations and recent security measures by the Nigerian government, violence remains widespread in parts of the Middle Belt and northern Nigeria. Reacting to the development, security analyst Olumayowa Olaniyi says the findings reflect the complex nature of insecurity facing Nigeria and the wider West African region.
We need to keep the picture in one place for us to understand what is going on. So if you look at some of the things going on in the North Central, yes, you can look at it from the lens of religious tension, especially when you look at things going on in Plateau State or in Benue State. That does not automatically mean it's the same context that you will have for the crisis going on in Kwara State.
He stresses the need for improved intelligence gathering, stronger community engagement, and sustained regional collaboration to address the growing security threats.
One of the things we talk about is the gap in intelligence gathering. Have we been able, as a country, have we been able to overcome that gap? No, we've not been able to do that. Have we improved so far? Yes, we have, because now we have support, ISR support, intelligence gathering reconnaissance, support from the US government in terms of AFRICOM.
The findings come amid renewed concerns over terrorism, banditry, and kidnappings in several parts of the country. 39 students and 7 teachers remain in captivity after a coordinated attack in Oyo State, with their families waiting anxiously. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
Crossing over to Ghana, where citizens who were evacuated from South Africa on Wednesday expressed relief after weeks of fear and uncertainty in that country. The evacuees arrived in Accra under a government-led evacuation exercise coordinated by Ghana's diplomatic mission in South Africa and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A delegation led by the Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Ablakwa received the returnees at the Accra International Airport and assured them of government support as they rebuilt their lives. WADR's correspondent in Accra, Nadede Tete, reports.
The first batch of 300 Ghanaians evacuated from South Africa arrived at the Accra International Airport Wednesday afternoon to emotional scenes as families and government officials gathered to receive them. A government delegation led by the Chief of Staff Julius Deborah and Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Ablakwa welcomes the returnees and assured them of government support. Addressing the returnees, the Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Ablakwa said government remains committed to protecting Ghanaians wherever they may be.
You are going to receive psychosocial support. We have psychologists, we have medical doctors, we have nurses here to take care of you. That is not all. President Mahama says that all of you should be given 2 special allowances.
Many of the evacuees expressed relief at finally returning home safely after weeks of fear and uncertainty. Some recounted abandoning businesses and personal belongings as tensions escalated in parts of South Africa, while others thanked governments for facilitating their evacuation. One of the evacuees, Togbe Victor Achu, spoke on their behalf.
It wasn't easy for us. As I'm speaking to you, I even got a bullet in my spine due to hijacking issue there in South Africa. And we would like to say we thank you for taking out from the lion's den. That is hell in a cell, but we thank God for our savior, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
The Foreign Affairs Minister also disclosed that government negotiated the release and return of some 26 Ghanaians detained in South Africa over visa-related offences. Meanwhile, South African immigration officials claimed that only 10 out of the about 300 Ghanaians processed for evacuation were legally residing in the country. Authorities there say investigations are ongoing while the government of Ghana is yet to respond to the claims. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye urges calm and national cohesion as the country celebrates Eid al-Adha. Meanwhile, Gambian President Barrow calls for peace ahead of December elections amid silence on his re-election bid. A new U.S. report exposes 30,000 armed militants fueling violence across Nigeria. Still ahead in the news, pharmaceutical giants intensify efforts to develop vaccine against new Ebola strain. We also have the press review, guest interview and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. There is good news for Central Africa, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo, as pharmaceutical companies race to develop a vaccine against a new strain of Ebola. The outbreak caused by the Bunyibunyo virus has already claimed more than 200 lives, while suspected cases in DRC, Uganda and South Sudan have passed 1,000. The fast spread of the virus is raising fresh concerns among health authorities across the region and beyond. The World Health Organization and Africa CDC are now appealing for more than $300 million to step up health measures, including surveillance and cross-border management protocols. Augustine Coley gives us the details.
Why no approved vaccine currently exists against the new Ebola strain? Scientific research is underway to develop a serum. The two existing vaccines developed against the first Ebola strains could be tested in an emergency setting. The stockpile of 2,000 doses deployed in the DRC by the vaccine alliance Gavi will be tested on primates. According to scientists, this vaccine could offer partial protection against the new Ebola strain. The WHO is also assessing whether these vaccine doses could be used in an emergency clinical trial. Meanwhile, there are specific vaccine candidates against the new Ebola strain. The first, developed by the multinational pharmaceutical company Merck, requires 6 to 9 months before trials can begin. The second, on which the University of Oxford is working in collaboration with the Serum Institute in India, could be ready for trials in 2 to 3 months. However, no publicly available scientific data is available regarding its effectiveness. Gavi has launched an advanced purchase commitment to encourage manufacturers to accelerate the development of a vaccine against the new Ebola strain. In the meantime, public health specialists recommend strengthening surveillance and prevention measures to avoid the spread of the disease. Uganda, which has been slightly affected by the disease, has closed its borders to the DRC to prevent any further spread of the virus. The border crossing remains open to a limited number of individuals and groups under strict conditions.
That was Augustine Coley with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For today's press review, let's join our Accra correspondent Nadede Tete for top and trending stories in Ghana.
Greetings. Welcome to the newspaper review segment. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. Let peace prevail. President Mahama urges Ghanaians in Eid message. Also here, government begins 800-acre reclamation project at Nkrofo. And illegal structures face demolition. Minister warns occupants to evacuate. And yes, Accra, once again, as has been happening every year, flooded. And one of the key reasons usually cited for the floods is people building in waterways, among many other things. And the minister is serving notice that they're going to be demolishing illegal structures built in waterways especially, and is serving notice to them to evacuate. Other stories here, a major one, 300 Ghanaians arrive home from South Africa. And this is in relation to the xenophobic attacks ongoing in South Africa. And 300 of our compatriots are back home. Chief Imam lauds interfaith harmony at Eid prayers. That's it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. The Ghanaian Times newspaper front page, President outlines development vision for Zangos at Eid al-Adha prayers. This story has been running through. First batch of Ghanaian evacuees from South Africa arrive home. The Daily Gist newspaper front page, detained MP fights for bail in Amsterdam. Yes, so a Ghanaian MP was recently picked up while on transit to London. He was picked up in Amsterdam and he's expected to be in court in the course of this week for his bail application to be heard. Other stories here, former Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf cited in 579 million Ghana cedis Africa Games scandal. Daily Gist, the Chronicle newspaper, national security dismantles Galamsey network linked to Secretariat. The Ghanaian publisher, Ghana Meteor Agency, urges Ghanaians to take weather warnings seriously. The Archives, Ghanaian xenophobic victims share harrowing ordeals as first batch arrives. Tema Oil Refinery comeback drive gains momentum as it secures 1 million barrels of Bonga crude for refining operations. The Overseer newspaper, Finance Minister presents 4 major 2025 fiscal, debt and energy reports to Parliament. Also here, EPA shuts down Ganhi Mining Company over persistent environmental violations. That should be it for the newspaper review segment. Is back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Nadede Tete, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
As the basket celebrations continue across the continent, attention is also turning to another major issue shaping Africa's future: leadership. From booming economies and youthful populations to unemployment and governance challenges, African leaders are under growing pressure to deliver results and drive sustainable growth. So, what does effective leadership in Africa look like today? And how can the continent transform its vast potential into real progress? To discuss this, we're joined by Yibra Tesfazgi, a veteran executive with more than 3 decades of experience across Africa and the Middle East. He begins by explaining what sets leadership in Africa apart from other regions.
Effective leadership in Africa begins with understanding that Africa is not a single market or culture. Successful leadership was less about authority. That is a problem we have facing in Africa, authority, a one-man authority in many cases, political or business. And more, we need more about integrity, relationships, trust, and cultural intelligence. The leaders who succeeded were those who listened first, respect local knowledge, and build credibility through integrity, performance, humility, and consistency. And this is to separate you from that of the old system. As I told you last time, the old system is the status quo, and the status quo, you know very well. My experience on African business leadership consistently highlights the importance of community inclusiveness and cultural sensitivity. That was why I had GE Corporate Citizenship for Africa approving and building various infrastructure in remote areas of many countries. One major difference compared to many Western environments is that leadership in Africa is deeply personal, as you know it very well, When I say personal, once those political or business leaders, once they come to power, they think themselves they are the ultimate.
Africa presents both immense opportunities and complex challenges, as you've mentioned. You look at infrastructure gaps to policy environment. How can leaders navigate these realities while still driving innovation and growth, which the people need?
Very good. Do you know what Africa's greatest challenge is? Its greatest opportunity. The continent, has enormous potential, which I don't need to explain for here. You know it very well.
Yes.
In my experience, leaders who succeed in Africa focus less on obstacles and more on solutions. The problem we see every part of the world, they tell us about our problems and not about solutions. They build strong local partnerships, invest in local talent, and adapt global strategies to local realities. Innovation in Africa is often comes from necessity, finding practical, scalable solutions in difficult environments. The key is balancing vision with execution in my continent. Africa does not lack ideas or opportunities anymore. It often struggles with implementation, infrastructure, and policy consistency because of our leadership. Studies on Africa's infrastructure and development in challenge consistently highlight governance, execution capability, and local capacity building as critical drivers of sustainable growth. Ultimately, leaders who create lasting impact are those who remain patient, agile, and committed to building institutions and ecosystems instead of personnel.
When you look at this generation or the next generation of African leaders, what mindset or leadership qualities do you believe are most critical for transforming the continent's economic future?
The future of Africa will be shaped by its youth. So successful leaders must actively listen, empower others, and build systems that bring more people to the economy rather than leave them behind. In short, Africa's transformation will depend on leaders who combine vision with integrity and ambition with service to our people.
Ibra Tesfazge is a veteran executive and leadership expert. And it's time for sports news, and the Senegalese national football team has arrived in Charlotte, a city in the southern United States, where they will continue their preparations for the 2026 World Cup, which will run until July 19th. Before departing Senegal on Wednesday evening, the team had their final training session earlier the same day at Diamniadio with the physical trainer. Sadio Mane and his teammates will play their first friendly match against the United States in Charlotte, where the Lions will remain until June 7th before heading to San Antonio, Texas. There, they will face Saudi Arabia in a preparatory friendly. The reigning African champions will then travel to their training camp in New Jersey in northern United States on June 11th. Staying with football, Femi Aziz delivered a dream debut for Nigeria, scoring twice as the Super Eagles defeated Zimbabwe to book a place in the Unity Cup final. The Millwall forward quickly pit behind the disappointment of missing out in the championship playoffs, announcing himself on the international stage with an early opener inside 5 minutes before adding a second goal shortly after the hour to give Nigeria a comfortable advantage. The victory keeps Nigeria's perfect Unity Cup record intact, with the Super Eagles now set to defend the title they have won in all three previous editions. They will face either Jamaica or India in Saturday's final at the Valley Stadium, home of Charlton Athletics. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Joacino Capa Gomez for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. Coming up is a repeat broadcast of Enviroscope to be followed by the second edition of the news in French and for Chevu. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening.